Neal Battaglia, Saxophone.com. This playlist is called Saxophone Tab, and the word tab is commonly used by guitar players and bass players for a certain system of notation that they can use to read music if they don't know how to use standard notation of music. And basically has numbers and like positions on lines where your fingers go on the frets and everything. I don't play guitar, but I know a little bit about it, not too much. So anyway, so there's a system called tab, and kind of you can see visually where your fingers go. In some of my videos, especially the earlier ones, I would use diagrams that I put together for like Careless Whisper and the Pink Panther, songs like that. You can find them out there. But basically, I show you where your fingers should go. And if you haven't seen the fingering chart videos, that will show you kind of more how that works. And eventually, you do actually pretty quickly, I would say, you want to learn how to read music in a standard way, because saxophone players are oftentimes expected to read music in certain situations. Other times, no one's reading music, and you're better off learning music by ear and getting it committed to memory, which is important. I would suggest you actually do that and you learn how to read. I like being able to do both, and it's been useful for me in a lot of situations. One example of how reading could be more useful is if you have a book of charts and you need to sight read it. It's impossible to learn by ear in the same amount of time you can sight read something. You can just play something and sight read it if you're good at sight reading. With learning music by ear, you need to at least hear it once. Otherwise, you're not going to get it. At the same time, there's situations where you can't just rely on reading music, where you should be able to learn music by ear. And these things with like the saxophone tab, as I'm calling it, they're going to kind of show you how to move your fingers. You want to maybe commit it to memory quickly, and you want to learn the notes by memory quickly. So you can use it kind of as a tool as you're just starting, but you don't want to rely on it too much. Kind of like a stepping stone to get to either learning music by ear and memorizing it, or getting closer to reading music. And you can't see really rhythm, so you're gonna have to listen to the rhythm because it's not notated in the diagrams. I maybe could like space them different amounts apart, but this whole idea is to help people who are just starting, not to be something that you rely on as you're playing for a few years on the saxophone. It should be something you get away from once you don't need it. It's kind of like training wheels on a bicycle. They're useful at a point in time, but you don't want to use them later on. They're not how a real or a professional saxophone player is going to play, and it's just better not to. And a lot of times it just looks better to have something memorized, to know it, to not look at anything, to kind of be enveloped in the music. Other times I feel like it's fine to read music if it's like a classical piece, or maybe you're reading a second tenor part in a harmony in a part and everyone's got a book, then it's fine to read music. I don't see that as an issue. And aging is another issue. Like, you can memorize thousands of tunes, or you can maybe memorize a little bit less tunes and read some tunes. If you're good at reading, the effect of what people hear is going to be pretty similar. And if you know the music and you're reading, it's just kind of a reminder almost sometimes. Sometimes you basically memorize something if you play it enough times. But if it's not like the melody, if it's just a harmony, maybe it's not the most important thing to memorize. Maybe there's other things you should focus more on memorizing. And maybe you'd even be playing and then you go to the front of the stage and not be reading and play a certain part if you're featured, something like that. So these videos, and I've done quite a few of them. I could do more. They take a little bit of work to make, but I can do them. But I would say basically go through the ones I've done and kind of get to the point where you're starting to learn music by ear, get to the point where you're starting to read, and that will open up a lot of music for you. Like, if you can read music, there's a lot of music out there that you can read. If you can learn music by ear, there's even more, because not everything that's recorded is written down. And if it is written down, it's not necessarily written down perfectly. So you want to be able to read, you want to be able to play music by ear, and those are basically the two skills that you're going to be using a lot